straight from Boston. It's Founder Thought, the show that has everything from advice, ideas, and inspiration from founders and business owners that made it all happen.
On this episode, Stefanie and Oz speak with sisters Vanessa and Casey, co-founders of Jaju Pierogi, a quickly growing food brand featuring their grandfather's time-tested pierogi recipes.
Welcome to Founder Thought. Today we are here with Vanessa and Casey. So why don't you guys start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, so I'll go. I'm Casey. I'm the younger of the two sisters. We both grew up in Western Massachusetts, which is kind of what started our business. Our grandfather was based there. And I went to school in Waltham at Bentley University and went into the corporate world for all of 2 years. And then we started this business. So now I live in Somerville, Massachusetts. So close by.
And I'm Vanessa, and obviously, since she's the younger sister, I am the older sister behind Jaju Pierogi. And so, grew up in Western Mass, went to Tufts, graduated in 2009, and I worked a lot. I studied international relations, French and Italian at Tufts, and so I had a bunch of international minded jobs coming out of school. I worked a little bit between Boston and Oxford, UK, and then I worked in Rome for a few years, and then I finished up working for a startup that had a headquarters in Amsterdam, did all that kind of fun travel stuff, and I still love to travel, but now then transition into a food business. Yeah. So we both, as we'll probably get into this, but neither of us really had a culinary necessarily passion or background. We just had a heritage that we wanted to share. And so we both really worked. She worked in consulting for those 2 years, and I worked in tech, and then we transitioned into this. So when people will be like, what do you recommend I do to, for this broth? Or I don't know. I just boil water and eat pasta.
I think there's a picture on your website, probably Trick and Bee.
Yeah, right. It looks like we're chefs in the kitchen. Exactly.
Like flowers, looks like you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We're definitely entrepreneurs.
I think that's the thing too. We started and we continue to do keep it simple. People always reach out to us because pierogi, Polish dumplings, but do you make galumpki? Do you make the soups? Will you do punchkis? And we're no. We do one thing really well. And that's what I think we're going to continue to do. We do 6 different flavors. We're introducing a meat flavor soon. So, but it's true. It's people are have you thought about doing this? And every family has their own recipe, their own flavor that they made with their family. And so when you hear that from them, you're wow, it's great to have the story and connect on that level. But in my head anyway, we're okay, well, we do these flavors, we do them really well. Let's stick to what we're doing.
This actually bringing me back for your brand now. Obviously, you from tech consultant. I think your grandfather started the business 60 years ago, and you guys work on weekend doing the dumpling, help them. So how you came up with the idea to make this take the next step? I'm interested because it's not very clear how you came up. You decided to move from just for Western Massachusetts to make it mass. It wasn't very clear. Yeah. So how you came up with this idea?
In middle school, so we had our grandfather started this deli with his siblings in the 60s, and they had pierogies. They also had kielbasa. They had the galumpki. So galumpki are stuffed cabbage with rice, and it depends on the family recipe, but pork and beef mixed up and kind of covered in tomato sauce. That's a Polish dish. But they also were very famous. People listening to podcasts might be familiar with Wineski Farms. That's the store, and they were very famous for their pot pies as well. And so I was a financially motivated middle schooler and would go there on Saturdays and work with my elders, and that's that process definitely informed the business at the beginning, but that store still exists. Our uncle runs it. And what the thing that we took away from it, because our favorite food really, actually I won't speak for you because maybe you feel like you like the galumpki better.
Galumpki is my favorite food for life.
The one we always had in our freezer, at college and everything, was the pierogies from the business. And we started to hear from people first roommates or people living with, in college, our suite mates or whatever, they'd say, hey, where'd you get those? And we started realizing that there wasn't anyone distributing high quality pierogi on a mass level. There's Mrs. T's, there's some regional ones, there's some restaurants, but there's no one offering a high quality pierogi. So that's kind of we heard that so much, and there is a 5-year difference between us. So we kind of like joked around about it. It was during when I was out of Vanessa, but I was out of college for those 5 years while she was finishing up. It was kind of when that foodie revolution was happening in the Boston area. So we were both like, someone's definitely going to do this. And starting a business is intimidating. So you just kind of like expected and I don't want to say hoped, but just expected that someone else would do it. And then no one else did it. And so we finally were like, let's figure out how to do this. So I don't know if you want to continue the story, farmers markets and all that business.
So we, and our grandfather, so when we first started, like the Polish family, like our family thought it was a joke. They were like, good luck. Like you're going to lose a shirt off of your backs. Like good luck. And so when we met and we're like, okay, let's start tinkering. We knew our grandfather had like the recipe book in the back of the store. And so we went back there and we found it was like so funny. Like we walked through like the back hallway and it was just like, oh, like sitting there. And we took that. Yeah. And we were just tinkering. And what I like to say now, like looking back, it's like we did it right in the sense that we kept our jobs, our full-time jobs, and tested a concept to make sure that people wanted it. There was demand for about 1.5 years. So we started doing farmers. So we tinkered around with recipes. Our friends tried them. They kind of gave us some feedback initially, like, and then we were tinkering a bit. And then we're like, okay, let's get, like, what's the worst thing we can do? Get permitted.
Yeah.
We found a local deli that would let us cook on Sundays. So we went to markets on Saturdays. What's the worst thing? We go to these markets for 1.5 years and then we're done. Like, okay, we have our corporate jobs. We can just test this. So we did that for the first 1.5 years. And so the first market we went to, we're like, let's go together, like sell 30 frozen boxes and see how it goes. And we sold out in an hour. We were like, okay. Yeah. And people were lining up at our booth. No one else had a line. We're like, okay. And then we're taking everyone's.
This was like an auditorium in Melrose, Massachusetts. It wasn't like.
Yeah. It was
so random. You must have had samples, right? Did you have samples?
We did.
We had samples.
That's probably what sold them.
Right.
And it was like,
give me some of that.
The two sisters, like there, we had
super energetic.
We always thought we had
so many hours
our Jaju Pierogi vests on, and we are frying up, these pierogies and sampling them out. But yeah, so she said,
so we took so we're like, okay, we're sold out, but let's take your name. We're hand delivering because we're like, we want all these customers. Like, let's go.
That's
and that
amazing.
really continued for 1.5 years. I mean, until we were like, okay. Now we're working on Wednesday nights, Thursday nights till 1 a.m. It's Christmas, which is the biggest time of year for pierogi. So we would be,
people
like
were finding us and like writing us and be like, they would literally, I'll take anything. I was like, well, we have 8 potato and cheese pierogi, 4 cabbage pierogi, like literally individual pierogis. And they're like, I'll take anything you have. And we're like, okay, this is the thing. So that's what we did. So for 1.5 years, we tested it. We were like, okay. And then it was becoming super overwhelming. And I was at my corporate job, like working on the business, and looking over my shoulder, making sure no one saw. So I was like, okay. And then same thing. And we're like, okay, let's just like give it a go. We went full time. But and that was January 2017 that we went full time.
So this one you took the step.
Yeah. So we started, our first farmers market was January 2016 in Melrose. And then we did more farmers markets and we started doing a few like pop-up events at breweries. And that was also, it was like the perfect, people talk about some element of luck in your business. And I think when I look back, like a lot of our, growth is attributed to our hustle and grind and work ethic for sure. And we are very scrappy and always like super creative with how we do things. But I think like a lot of it for the luck element is that we came up when the brewery scene was just starting. And so
does it tie in well with like
so we would go and fry our pierogies at breweries.
Fry dumplings and beer.
Oh yeah. So it was like people were so excited about the new brewery in their town. They were food trucks were super cool and pop-ups and we were like a pierogi pop-up, like, oh my God. And so that was like super new. And so when we would go to these breweries, we would sell out every time. It would be a line of people. And so I think that was just like the perfect moment to launch our business because it really gave us the momentum to continue. So to build it helped us build our brand and gave us the momentum to then be able to pursue distribution with confidence. If we entered that scene now, it would be more difficult because there's so many breweries. There's
Yeah.
so people are just have fatigue about. I mean, we still do pop-ups here and there. We've definitely wound them down. We do more large scale events, but when we do pop-ups, we do see that there is like a fatigue. There's so many breweries, there's so many food pop-ups, there's so many food trucks and everything. So it was really, I think that was like the luck element from when we started.
That's amazing.
So now it's your family recipe.
Yeah.
It's you guys, you change it or is the same, or did you make it more like to fit the honest here, American honest a bit more?
So the potato and cheese. So the potato and cheese is our number one seller. It's what everyone knows when they think of pierogi, the flavor. And it's pretty similar to what our
I would say
it's pretty much the same as to what our grandfather did. Obviously, we've scaled it up to a point because he has recipes of what for 500 pierogi, and now we're doing 6,000 or 7,000 a day. So we've scaled it up. So the potato and cheese is definitely the same. He also made a kielbasa pierogi, which we did kielbasa and red pepper. The cabbage and mushroom is also super, super traditional, but we now we use we have a pierogi machine that allows us to allows us to scale. Okay. So we had to add potato to that because for it to smoothly go through the extruder and the machine. Yeah. So there's things we've had to change and tinker with, but so we do the potato and cheese for grocery right now. We have 5 SKUs out in store. So potato and cheese, which is the number one seller. And then we created the sweet potato caramelized onion, not traditional.
No, that sounds delicious though.
Yeah, it's our number 2 seller, and I think it's because no one has ever seen that flavor out there, and people love sweet potatoes. Yeah. And then we do a jalapeno cheddar as well, which is not very traditional, but
and spinach and feta too.
So we do potato and cheese, sweet potato caramelized onions, spinach and feta, cabbage and mushroom, and the jalapeno cheddar.
So now, because I know it's Polish food, obviously, when you go for like the event, actually this was in my mind, when you go for this event, is Polish people coming on the line, or?
There's like, pierogi are a very nostalgic food, but there's different types of nostalgia that we've seen out there. So one is that there's like familial, like there's someone, you're Polish or a Polish background, and your mother, your grandmother made them, and you haven't been able to find them that taste like your mother's or grandmother's, and that's that element of nostalgia. So those people definitely show up. They will drive, they will pay, they will show up. Those people. Then there's also some parts of the country that are super Polish. So there's particularly New York City obviously has every culture. So there's New York City, and New Jersey has a lot of Polish. Pennsylvania has a lot of Polish people. And then I saw it online recently, pierogi pocket. It's like New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, out to Illinois, Minnesota, in that stretch where a lot of Polish people settled. And so I've encountered, I'm sure she has too, many people that say, I'm Italian or I'm whatever, but I grew up next to a Ukrainian family, a Polish family. I dated a Polish girl, and her mom made
really often.
Yeah, and her mom made the best pierogi. There's a lot of, because it's a comfort food. It really is just like a nonna that makes a really good pasta sauce or a good eggplant parm or lasagna. There's that warmth to some pierogi, a good plate of pierogi. And so we get that as well. And then also dumplings are cool. Dumpling, I love dumplings. It's just the ultimate comfort food. And so it definitely the other thing we hear frequently from people is that I would never have tried pierogis if I hadn't tried yours. And those people now go to the store and buy them, but they probably wouldn't have gone and bought Mrs. T's because they had us at a brewery. They were like, "What's a pierogi?" They probably didn't pronounce it that way, but what's a pierogi? So then they go. So it's a bunch of different things, but people, if they're hungry at a brewery and there's dumplings involved, they're going to probably try them.
This is what I found, because actually I'm Middle Eastern.
Yeah.
So we I go for places where they have baba ganoush. It's not baba ganoush.
Yeah.
But this is why I love, because they tell me it's absolutely not baba ganoush. I don't know what you're talking about.
It has eggplant at some level in it, and it was...
I love baba ganoush, and you're breaking my heart.
But it's not baba ganoush. It's absolutely not. I don't know what Actually, I was with Stefanie a few weeks ago in Back Bay. And
Stephanie's in Newbury.
She's telling me it's baba ganoush. I said, absolutely, it's not baba ganoush. What's that? She said, no, this is our test on it. What I like about your idea, it still has the flavor of the, like, you kept the
Right.
grandfather
Right.
recipe.
Right.
I love this idea because a lot of people, I feel, they go too far from what it is.
Yeah.
But I love how he kept it. So it's amazing.
And also too with like Polish people. So with the potato and cheese, farmer's cheese is like the most traditional way to produce a potato and cheese pierogi. So Polish people, like with every Polish person that comes to an event, is like, so what cheese is it? And you have it's the test. Like you have to, and you know what they want to hear. So you're like, it's farmer's cheese. I promise. But it's like funny because like I like being able to say that back because I'm like I know what like Polish people put in their pierogi and what it's important to them and that's what they want to taste. So I'm like happy to respond the way that you want me to, respond. And so that's been cool too. And like sauerkraut with the cabbage and mushroom, like, is it sauerkraut? Yes, it's sauerkraut because that's the traditional,
Yeah, but this I think what makes the brand successful. I seriously, because I feel a lot like I'm gonna come back for hummus, but I feel like because they go too far from it, really, it's what not successful. The sabra because it tastes very hummusy. This is why it's successful, sabra hummus. So this is why because it's actually it's hummus. It tastes very traditional, but this is what I love about your brand. So now we get in farmers market. Now, how this is what interesting. What's the next step after? Because this, I think, guys, now is the growth. This is what the scaling is gonna happen. The challenges. So, what's the challenge happen here after this step?
So our goal, something that we've both heard over time talking to other people in the industry that we have been lucky to share. Like some people can get into a business with a partner, and from the beginning, like they don't talk about it or they don't agree and they hope maybe it resolves itself about a common goal, right? So, they might get into a food business and one wants a restaurant and one wants to distribute. And then if they don't agree on that, then the business, can ultimately just not really go anywhere. But we were in agreement the whole time that our ultimate goal with our business was to distribute to grocery stores. So everything that we did, like farmers markets, the pop-ups, any events that we did was all to grow brand awareness to then achieve like the store distribution and have confidence at that store level. So we went full-time in January 2017 and we got our permit to distribute to stores that spring. But if you looked back at our it's so cute now, but if you look back at our packaging, we were doing 6 pierogies in a clamshell, like plastic container with like a wraparound
that
sleeve.
would fall off. You'd give it to the distributor and hope that it would stay on.
And they were like, we had like a 60 or 90-day Best Buy, which was just because of freezer burn because we didn't have the right packaging. And now like our packaging is amazing and it's stand-up pouch and it looks extremely sexy on the grocery store shelf. But so we were always working to that. And so then when we first started, like in that springtime doing the distribution, we got the permit, we were just driving around to stores and dropping off our pierogies as samples and calling and following up. And we still do a lot of that now. But we got probably into first like 50 or 70 stores just like doing that. And then we started picking up like distributors, our first distributors that would do it for us.
But I think, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, like, what's the challenge of like going from that point to like the full distributor? Because I know that that's difficult to do. It's not easy to get into stores and especially big brands. So what was that sort of challenge in that process?
Yeah, so I think the way we did it was smart in the sense that we started with a small distributor. We got into specialty stores through him and we were out there selling, like knocking on doors, calling for weeks and weeks. But then, there's a point where so we got a few different like smaller distributors and then we're like, okay. And we kind of naively were reaching out to like larger chains and just being like, okay, who do they use? Because we've gotten to all these specialty stores now, like we always say, it's like, who's the whale? Like we want the whale account because there's, a few years you do that. And now we're at that point too, where we're like, okay, like who's the big account that like we can focus on, 8 of them. Like I know like back in when I was listening, like, it's like, okay, they're in Sprout, like the big stores, like who can we focus in on? Because that's really how you're going to scale your business for everyone to see you across the country. So I think it was really smart and we had like really good partners in our specialty distributors. And then, like about, I would say a year and a half ago, we started tapping into, I guess about 2 years ago, I was calling on Big Y for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And he finally said yes, the buyer. And then that opens, the door for a larger distributor, Bizzuto's. And then same thing, like Vanessa was working on with Unify and Kehi, which are national distributors. And you kind of like, you're out there on the road asking who they use. And then that's like creating, okay, I should be tapping into them because I want this chain. So that's kind of how we did it. Like first seeing, hey, the store is interested. Can you carry us as a distributor, please? Because otherwise you kind of get lost,
Yeah.
And I do like kind of going back to our initial approach with, and I still kind of believe in this, and we both do, that getting our brand into a bunch of small stores was a great first approach because the more people see your product, the more likely they're going to be to buy at the big box store, right?
Yeah.
So like I was just saying this yesterday to somebody that our products, like a lot of times products go like they'll be conventional versus like they'll be in like the Stop and Shops and Shaw's and everything of the world, or they'll kind of go like more natural, like Whole Foods. And we have like been able to bridge. We're not in Whole Foods. Give us a call, Whole Foods.
Soon.
But we're not in Whole Foods, but like we are everywhere from like farm stands to Big Y or Hannaford. Like we're in Hannaford's in upstate New York. And so it's really interesting how our brand has been able and will continue to kind of branch or kind of bridge that range of stores because our product is so wholesome. Like our ingredients are straightforward. There's no preservatives. Like it's what stuff you could take off of your shelf or your, buy at the grocery store and kind of there's nothing where you read the label and you're like, what is that? I can't pronounce that at all. It's all stuff from the shelf. So, but yeah, so starting from the small stores was great. And we, up until like a year ago, we were still like spending days on the road, like with a map of all these individual stores and like dropping samples. But yeah, now as we expand, so we're in about 550 stores now, and we're very dense in New England. And now we're starting to expand into like New York, New Jersey, DC.
Those are big markets too.
Yeah. And we're starting to realize that like it's a lot to be on the road in like, I mean, she went to New Jersey. I spent like 3 days in upstate New York driving between like Schenectady and Syracuse and all those places. And like, there's a lot of empty land out there. And so I like look back and I'm like, I'm glad I did that. And I also walked like 3 days of New York City with a cooler backpack and like walked to all these stores. But it is really about getting those big accounts now, especially as we expand. And then like the smaller ones, as our brand awareness grows in those markets, will more naturally pick us up.
Yeah. So when you get for bigger store, obviously now, just like, because doing it for a farmer's market or doing it for 50 small stores is different from doing it for a bigger store. Right. So you have to open a warehouse. You have a place. Those, I think, is by itself a huge challenge. Oh, yeah. And what you learn from this, I would love to hear this. Like,
yeah, that's what we're facing right now, actually. So part of expanding outside of New England, I was like kind of talk to what she was saying. The challenge there is also in New England, we did all the pop-ups, breweries, all that. We've been here. Our brand's been everywhere on the street, sell at market. So when you leave New England, you're reaching out to stores that have never tried it. They try it, but they're like, I don't know anyone who's ever asked this product. So that's like a challenge we're definitely going to face. But as we continue with these larger distributors now and they're ordering more product and we're, we have category reviews with larger chains, we're like, okay, we're building inventory, becoming way more efficient from a production standpoint. But during COVID, freezer space has been super, super, super difficult to find. So we have a freezer that we're just like,
and now it's ice cream season too.
Right. Yeah. So we're building inventory for the fall because we are having conversations with chains that are saying, okay, I'm going to bring your stuff on. Yep. And we're like, okay, so we want to build inventory, want to get more efficient with our production, but where do we put them? And when you find some place to put them, there's a best by date, right, on those products. So if you're not moving it, they're sitting there, and then they're outside the date in which they accept it. So it's a lot of like juggling and all that. We're every day we're trying to figure that out, but we're trying to find the right balance.
Sure.
And to add to that, something that, I mean, every business is always trying to determine the right moment to invest in new equipment and all of that. So we've completely bootstrapped the entire thing. We have no investors. And so one of the things that we've been really smart about, and it's funny, I laugh, I'm like, we're smart about it, but then we also kind of like drag our feet to the point where like then we realize we don't need to do it. Like we do. So like one of the things that we talked about is like expanding our walk-in freezer, right? So we have at numerous junctions been like, we gotta like blow out this walk-in freezer and like take it over our space. We've talked about taking on investors to do something like that. We've gotten so many quotes multiple times over and everything. And then every time we kind of like bump up against that, we're like, okay, what is the solution to stay in this space? Or are we looking at co-packing, or are we, because if we can find the right partner, is co-packing the right route? And then, or like instead of spending now after COVID, what was $60,000 is now $100,000 with a freezer. Like instead of spending $100,000 when we're here for 2 more years, are we just going to try to hustle and find offsite storage, like you're saying? So it's this constant like evaluation of how to spend your money and how to get creative with, and because we really, obviously, like any business for the most part, I mean, obviously everyone has their strategy, but we would like to keep it 100% us and not give ownership away.
All that build up. And that's, that's where a lot of businesses, I think, struggle, because it's like if you get investors, then it's like a whole other animal. There's so many more people involved. You really don't have full control over every decision. So that is a big, big decision that a lot of businesses struggle with.
We work with a company to do actually baby stuff. They're grown massively. They get investor. Actually, they kicked the owner out. In 6 months, she was out. They told her, you become a president. Then after that, they took her out. And she's like, she said this was a wrong decision because they kicked her out. But bring us back for the goal. What your end goal, guys? Like where you see yourself? Because I think sooner or later, like because we struggle. Even us, we struggle. Do we get invested? Do we not get invested? How we do it? Because a lot of financial challenges here.
Right.
Like because you have a lot of stuff you have to invest in. You have over. So what's the end goal? How you think you can be able to make it from here to there?
Yeah, so we've had this conversation a lot recently, and so right, like you said, either invest in a larger facility, you continue to expand and manage food manufacturing and scale that way, or you can co-pack, so you can outsource it and kind of focus on selling. And that's kind of which we've come to that agreement, like running the numbers, saying, okay, it makes sense to find the right partner. Of course, we're not in any rush to get out of food manufacturing, but finding the right partner that can scale up for us, so then we can focus on selling. We also agree, like long term, like I don't want to be in this business forever, and I don't think Vanessa does either. So we want to grow and eventually sell. Sure. But to get there, I think co-packing is probably the best route, just because of COVID and supplies and all, and just like the expense that is, and we would need to take on investment in order to build out our own manufacturing facility. And we both agree that we don't want to give away that ownership. So we're like, okay, if we find the right partner that can help us produce, we go out and sell, and then someone like Nestle buys us. I agree. I think I agree with we definitely want to exit. That being said, like that can take so many different forms, right? So they can say, okay, we're buying you, but we're keeping you on for, brand management or innovation or things like that. So we'll see when cross that bridge when we come to it, what that looks like. Casey and I are a big part of the brand with the sisters, with the grandfather and everything like that. And I know, like, I used to do work for General Mills on the side, and I would do like sampling for like Larabar and Annie's. And so like, I know with Larabar, like Lara, the famous Lara, she got sold so long ago, but I don't really know if she's actively still involved, but I know after she sold, they had her on for like innovation and stuff. So things like that, it could take different forms, but
we do have like a potential partner that has a lot of the same equipment, which is really, really reassuring, that could help us. And that's when we talk about, like, we're working on rolling out a meat pierogi. So the meat pierogi has to be produced in a USDA facility. And that's going to be a big game changer for us, because it's like a super popular flavor for us. So people have been asking for it for years, but it's a good test for us to work with them on that, and then see if it might work potentially to roll out our other flavors with them. Because as a business, they have decided that they make everything, like, they are making everything in house. They are a much larger business. Like, I think they were saying, like, at any given time they have like hundreds of pallets like in storage ready to go.
Yeah. Oh,
So they're a much larger business, and they have the capacity. But we also really trust them as on a personal level, and they have a lot of the same, like I said, equipment, and the equipment that we would ultimately need if we were to build out our own facility. So doing the kielbasa is a good test run with that. But it's funny, like I say, we've just kind of like rolled with the punches and kind of tweaked. I won't say like completely changed, but we've like tweaked our approach for things a billion times. And every few months we're looking at things again. I mean, would we have all thought that, first of all, COVID would happen, then like the rolling impacts of COVID, like we were saying, like as a consumer packaged good, like frozen item, dumpling, comfort food, we were slammed during COVID, because people were home with their kids. It was an easy meal. It was our business
They
like
were
went
shopping
crazy.
a lot more.
And then now we feel like it's like
now.
we're feeling the effects now, because people
Yeah.
are going out again.
Right.
So like we now luckily we're entering like the event circuit now. We do Boston Calling, we do all these festivals, so we're like making the transition a little bit with them. But we're really feeling, and I think a lot of grocery probably is feeling that like transition. So it's kind of like we agree we want to sell. How we get there can change in another 6 months.
Yeah, it could take like 6 years. So
Right.
it could be 10 years from now.
I know.
Yeah, we definitely think it's going to be like
I don't
10
think
years,
I
not
don't think
gonna
it's
be.
next year.
No,
but
It could never happen.
Right,
Never know
right,
what change,
right,
because
exactly.
I want
Casey
to.
And also-
definitely needs it to happen at some point.
I've always said, I'm like, 37 is the year I'm 30. I just turned 30. I'm like, 37 is the year I am selling the business. And that's like, okay, so that makes me 42.
42, that's
Okay,
fine.
cool.
That'll be
But
fine.
yeah, like I say like Nestle, right? But like it also that takes other forms, right? You might say, okay, we're done. We built it to this point. Like anyone else interested, it could be any other food business that would be eyeing it.
There's
but
so many different things.
I'm like, I'm having fun. I'm still having fun, and I'm not bored. Like that's something I like when I'm driving in the morning. I'm like, what motivates me? Why am I doing this? I'm like, I've never been bored in the last 6 years. I'm always critically thinking, and there's always a problem to solve, because if we're not solving it, no one is.
Yep.
And it's like, and we have the freedom to kind of do what we want with the business. Yeah, we have to talk to each other about it, but like, it's cool. Like no one, we don't.
You're working for yourself.
Yeah,
You're
exactly,
entrepreneurs. You're working for
exactly.
yourself.
So this
There's a lot
actually
of
what
positives.
bringing for the fun of the side of owning business. What I think it's fun owning business, but also a lot of people from outside looks, it's like you look at your
It's
website.
glamorous. Yeah.
so
Oh, it's so
glamorous.
glamorous. You own your own business. It's like, oh my
Yeah,
god.
it looks like, oh my god.
They have no
oh my God,
idea.
They don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Because if you look at your website, say, oh my god, look at those two ladies. They're doing amazing.
They're just
But
baking
they
every
don't
day.
understand.
Yeah. You're in the
Yeah.
kitchen just baking,
Yeah.
hanging out.
Yeah, I think it's a struggle to I don't want to like come off as like woe is me or poor me or anything like that, but I think it is a struggle. Maybe it's my own personal like guilt complex, but I often like worry about our staff and how they like see us or interpret like what we're doing, because there is so much behind like the production. There's so much like, now especially like our roles have really changed. I used to run, this is Vanessa, I used to run the pierogi machine like up until January of 2021. I was in like working, I was doing the 5 days in the kitchen facility, like, and Casey was boiling the pierogis and literally hand boiling the pierogis. And like, then I was able to train someone, and we're training another person too on the machine. So they were able to kind of take over my role. And then we hired more people, and we got some more equipment to facilitate the boiling process. But we just really in the past maybe like 8 months have been able to really step away from production. And so going back to what I was saying, it's like I feel guilty almost when I'm like on my computer in the facility because I'm like, I should be washing dishes. I should be packaging pierogi. I should be mashing those potatoes. Like I should be doing something, but I shouldn't. Like I'm there to help always, but my energy is best used and hers as well, but is best used like building the business so that we can continue to pay all these people and all that.
That's a struggle that I think a lot of business owners have, because I think we struggle with that all the time. Is we do a lot at least from the agency side, and actually on the Zoo Boot side as well. But we struggle a lot because we're like all hands in, like we're working in the business, we're working on the business every day. And it's really difficult to do that because we shouldn't be working in the business. We should be working on building the business and on the business, and, you know, growing it and all those things. But it's difficult because it's a balance between it, you know, and I think that, you know, it's hard for us, a couple of reasons to let go, but also because we can make an impact and clients still talk to us on a daily basis and things like that. So that's a struggle that we face all the time.
I think I started this because when what you said, Vanessa, because you started the business.
Right.
This is what you feel you have to be there.
You always rolled up your sleeves.
Yes, so this is a mentality.
And that's what got you to where you are now.
But,
so it's like,
but if you keep rolling your sleeves, you're going to wake up in 30 years and be like, I'm still rolling up my sleeves.
Yes, you have to, shift has to be happen. You have to know, now I'm going to grow the business. Now, let me ask you, what inspires you guys?
What inspires us?
On a daily basis?
And then, because like you said, you're driving in the car, you try
So I was actually thinking about, because I just turned 30 and I was like, okay, thinking about my 20s and doing this business. I think two things. So I've always said, like, I went to business school and I always like said in the back of my head, I want to own like a restaurant or some food business. And the only real reason why I wanted to own a food business was because I've been told that 90% of them fail within the first 5 years. So I've always been like,
a challenge.
Okay, like that's a challenge. And I'm here for it. Cause I've always like envisioned my future, like after college, like living an unconventional life, like not like working for someone else or sitting at a desk. Like I always thought that for myself. But I didn't really know how it was going to like take form. So that's like kind of what I think about. I'm like, okay, I did that in my 20s and it's always a challenge. And I need that like stimulation. And then also I was thinking about like our grandfather, like he had two kids, my mom being one of them, and his son didn't have children. And so we are the only grandchildren. We don't have any first cousins, and we're girls. And like we can't really carry on the family name because traditionally that's what happened. So I was like, well, it's really cool. Like every day I'm like, wow, we're like carrying on our grandfather's name with our products for like years to come. Like past us selling the business or not selling the business, like people talk about their grandfather or like my grandfather, and like that's how we're carrying it. So that's really like
that's amazing
cool for me.
Yeah,
and I never saw myself owning my own business, and that's just because I'm definitely, we talk about a lot about this. Like she's like I need a challenge. Like don't tell me what to do. Like all that, and I am like kind of the opposite, where I'm like, I worked in corporate. I was climbing the corporate ladder. If my boss wanted to be on every one of my emails, cool. I know I'm doing a good job. Here you go. Have an flooded inbox. Like, I don't care about being micromanaged. Like I was in corporate. I was, I was always like the teacher's pet, goody two shoes kind of, personality. And so that's just kind of what I was doing. And I was always like, super type A, so starting a business was just like another thing to do, and put on the resume, so that was fine. But I don't think that when we started, I don't know about you, but I never like envisioned that this is what it was going to become. And I say that in a positive way. Like I was never like, this is going to be like a national pierogi business. We had, if it went well, that we always wanted to distribute, but I don't think like you could have told me that I was going to be working on this all the time. And but what inspires me, I think, yes, the legacy 100%. But then, so for me, this is like super specific to my role. I really feel like I've found my place because I do the marketing for the business. And like for the first 5 years, I was like cramming that in, with running the machine and doing all the production and washing the dishes. But now that I'm like able to freely think, I really feel like I'm like building a brand. And I don't say like we are, but in terms of like the marketing strategy, it's something that like I'm so passionate about. And you know, Casey's always a good sport because I
always just like tell me what to do.
I see Instagram reels in my mind, and I'll be like, do this,
like,
do
it's
that.
fine. Just tell, like, I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Yeah.
But
So
my brain doesn't think like I don't think like that.
And that brings up another question. So, like, tell us a little bit about your dynamic and how you work together, and how I know we talked a little bit about that before we started rolling, but tell us a little bit about how you guys work together and how that dynamic works.
Or you go first. I want to hear your perspective.
No, I mean, we naturally like doing different things. So I like went to business school. That didn't really prepare me for running a food business, but it helps. Like my brain just thinks like in numbers and how to be more efficient. But also like I care about employees, like HR, like kind of like managing and like production, like operations, like that's the stuff that I get like high on. Like I've recently learned that too, like being in like at the co-packer. So it's like, there's just like process, money, numbers, all of that, cash flow, like, don't worry about it. I got you. And like, she's over there being like the creative and like social marketing and like, hey, like reach out to this store and do this. Like there's things that I'm not thinking about all the time that she's telling me to think about. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what do I need to do? And then I see the benefit of doing that. So it's like, we've naturally, I mean, like she said earlier, it's like 4 years ago it was like, because it's like, who does what? Because we didn't really find our place. Yeah. But now it's like, okay, great. Like, who do you like marketing programs? Okay, I got you. Numbers, like, you got me. Like, so it's like, it's like really, really healthy. But working with your sister is not that easy. And like, we have very good personalities. Yeah. But like, for us, what has worked is like, in our families like this, my mom said this earlier today. She's like there's boundaries, but like we just anything comes out. So that there's no filter in our family. There never has been. So like that's what's worked really well for us because we don't hold grudges. Like if something we don't agree on, like it's just like, and then it's done. And that is so important, I think, in especially like our industry. Like cut the BS.
We grew up arguing about like as constant family arguing, and so like bicker, you know, and so. And it was just like a quick, you could just have an argument and then it would be done and then you'd be over it in 15 minutes or an hour and you'd be fine. And so like we're able to kind of either disagree, really have it out, like anything, and then be like over it and be done. But I agree. It's definitely, it's a dynamic in our family that doesn't necessarily work with employees either. Like it's something you have to like realize that like, I mean, for me, we're like that as a family. I am like extremely direct as a person. And I don't know if I can untrain myself, which is why she manages the employees more because I feel like I'm direct and I'm not, people sometimes can't handle how direct I am. And it's not like I'm degrading.
Sounds like somebody I know.
Yeah. It's not like I'm degrading them. It's nothing like that. It's just like, I will just be like, no, we said that. We didn't say this. We said this. Well, so let's do this. And then they'll be like, don't be rude to me. And I'm like, I'm not being rude to you. I'm just telling you what happened.
But the right way, I really think the right way because I'm very, very dark. Yeah. And ask anybody around me, you know, I'm like, whoa.
You know exactly what you stand with on.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
he doesn't beat around the bush.
I think this is the best. Because also, I think why? Because we're very busy people.
Yeah.
I really don't have time to sit down, bullshit you and
like
play
cuddle
the game.
and,
I don't have the time. That's what it is. You can do it or not. Let's just move on. Even with our client, even if we don't like our client, actually we tell them we don't like it. We go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because like straightforward. Because like, but I love that this is straightforward. I think much better.
Yeah.
But also I love what you said. Like, you know, guys, how we no filter. I think this, because we work together for how many years right now, I think this is actually what makes it successful because we open with each other.
There's no wasted time. Like,
wasted
trying
time.
to figure things out amongst each other. Just like, here's what it is.
Too busy.
It's too busy to sit down and play a game.
I think there is definitely some value in having a family business and having like an employee, like just like two people working together.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some different dynamics. And I think there's a lot of positives to it too, for sure.
Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, I think, from my perspective on the working together, I agree with her 100%. She's definitely like the like she's like definitely the delegator. Do not ask me to delegate. I like my brain like goes like this and like just short circuits. I can't like tell people to do things really. But I'm definitely like more in my own head, like definitely the creative. And then I think I'm, like she said, I'm kind of like the bomb dropper sometimes, where she'll be doing like all of the like steps, little day-to-day things, and then I come in and I'm like, we should do this differently. You know, or like we should do this, or like we should do, you know, like do this or do that. And like, so I will like be quiet, and then all of a sudden I just like walk into a scenario and I'm like, bam, and I like drop something that I see that we could be doing differently. But I probably drive her crazy when I do that. But that's, I think, like I kind of like float in my own corner. So it works because
Good cop, bad cop.
yeah, I'm definitely bad cop, good cop, whatever.
So
That's amazing.
We've been working how many years together? 7 years?
6. And we weren't close before
Yeah,
that.
that's thing. We lived like 30 minutes from each other, and we saw each other like twice a year. Honestly,
Yeah.
I feel like.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Like,
So,
we were
so now
not-
what you learn about each other? So for example, what you learn about your sister, what you learn in this 6
I just feel like I don't know if it's like something that you can like easily say I didn't know X about her, but what I can say is that I can sense when Casey's anxiety is rising, like a change in temperature or like a change in the wind. Like, and I can say like now that anxiety is tied back to like this for sure, this incident or this thing that's happening. And like, you just have to like talk her down or like write it out. That is one thing that I've like learned, I think, over time you learn to manage the other person too, like in what their
like how you
behaviors are.
interact, how you
Yeah.
engage, and how
Yeah.
you absolutely.
Yeah, because she's the realist / slight pessimist, but definitely realist, and I'm the reckless optimist.
And you need both. That's the thing. We
need-
were like in an argument a few weeks ago, and I was like, it was a fine argument, but I was like, I really was sitting there like in my chair, and I was like, wow, I'm so glad like there's the two of us here, like for my sake and for your sake.
We do need
like,
both,
We need
yeah.
both of us. But I think so. Things that I've learned. I mean, she's always been super direct. I've learned from Vanessa that this is one thing. I think she's learned this too. But if she's like 0 to 100 and like I'm not ready for it, I just go, okay, yep, because the next day she's like thought it through another way, or maybe she feels the same way, but like it's not always the best thing to tackle it right in that moment with her.
Yeah.
Because we both get
Yeah.
and then we both have to kind of come back. But honestly, like Vanessa, I mean, you see pictures of Vanessa in like 2nd grade, like she looks the same. Like she's kind of had the same personality. So like nothing really has like really surprised me over the years. But we are way closer, and
Yeah.
I was just a little
That's amazing.
adult.
Yeah.
I was a little
She
adult.
was.
I
A little
wasn't.
mini
I'm not a big kid. I was always a little
Yeah, she
adult.
was.
Yeah.
Like
So do you have a mentor?
a mentor. Yeah, we
Yes.
have a few.
yeah,
It's
we know.
family
People-
or
No,
Oh,
industry
not
mostly.
industry.
Yeah, we have a gentleman who was the advisor of the only corporate job I had. He was an advisor there, and then we left, and I reached out to him like 3 or 4 years ago, and he's been a great resource. Like he has an extensive Rolodex, he says, and it's true. He knows like everyone everywhere, and he's not really focused in food manufacturing, but he like knows, you know, who to tap into, whatever, and we meet with him.
Yeah,
But
me
also
too.
just like, yeah, and the operations guy behind Tuscan Kitchen, they have a few restaurants and they do wholesale and distribution. But honestly, like
I think it's mostly friends in the industry.
people are so like always like paying it forward. I feel like in our industry, like you reach out to someone, and people are so grateful, and like
That's
now a
amazing.
lot of people reach out to us, which is like, whoa, like May, like, you know, like
Yeah.
initially I remember 5 years ago I was like, and then they're reaching out to us for advice. You're like, okay, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So,
I think something that I've learned about having like a network of other consumer packaged goods, like vendors, is that it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously someone who's like just starting out is maybe not the right person for us to talk to, but if someone like is a little bit younger or older than us in the space, like or if they went around about it a different way, it can still be super valuable. So like, for example, some of my friends in the space are like, there's AMG Snacks. She makes like kind of like date protein balls. Amanda, she just started like a year and a half ago, but she has a product that moves more quickly, and like has a co-packer, and she has from the beginning. So she's been like working at a computer, like selling her product. So it's interesting to see like how with the buyers that she's reaching out to and who she's approaching first, you know, and all that. And then like my other friend, Kamal, he does Hillside Harvest sauce, like same thing. He like had a lot of time while we were, I don't want to say he had a lot of time in his hands. That's not what I mean. But like he had time to like research some programs when we were busy like boiling pierogi and stuff like that, and we were like just doing the minimum on the computer, and we didn't have any awareness of resources. He like did do all that. And so even though like maybe we have larger distribution than some of these people or we're older, like they went about it in different ways that now like our experience can inform maybe like what they're doing, and then their other experiences can kind of help us. So I feel like it's really good to maintain a network. I have another friend in New York City she's out of New Jersey, who does like burek, which are like spiral phyllo dough pies. So, yeah. And so we're like a similar like frozen ethnic food, and her and I are like texting constantly all day long. Be like, do you know the buyer at this place? Do you know the buyer at that place? What does this distributor require? You know, and so we're just constantly sharing information, because I'm in a territory that she's not. She's trying to like break into more, and she's in a territory that I'm trying to break into more. So we're just like constantly sharing information. So I think that's like the most important thing. And then we have the mentor bit, like being able to walk into a facility that has all of the equipment that you didn't even know what to look for, like
and sending links. Yeah, like, okay, you should look at this, or like, here's my contact. Oh, you're buying corrugated boxes. Well, this is who you should. This company actually is 20 cents less. Like all of that research just takes hours. Yeah. They're just willing to send you, and you're like, wow, like that probably saved me thousands of dollars this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so, it's funny. I mean, you probably feel like there's just funny connections and how you get there, because you're like, how did we meet again? Like,
yeah, that's amazing. Let me ask you a question. So, what advice would you give up and coming entrepreneurs, business owners? What are things that you've learned, or something that you would just say, this is absolutely something you need to know? You know, and here's my advice
Vanessa,
to you.
If you can answer this, and Casey, if you can answer, what advice you would give yourself right now, going back 5-6 years ago?
Yeah.
So for yourself and Vanessa, if you can answer for entrepreneur coming up.
Yeah. Sure. I would say like hindsight is no sight, in the sense that like you never, like as you continue to grow a business, like right, like you don't know what you're doing really. You have to pay taxes, you have to pay permit fees. You have no idea that the state of Massachusetts might reach out to you. Oh, sorry, like you kind of like, I'm learning, like this is what I did, or like we had a walk-in freezer that like doesn't fit pallets. Like we're gonna be sending pallets to distributors.
Or like a loading dock that's too high.
Like a loading dock that like no truck will come to. They Google map it and they're like, sorry, like good luck. Like but you can't get hard. Like you can't like knock yourself down for these things. Like I should have known this, or like no, actually you probably would have never known. And I always say that to myself now. And it's like it makes it more like light and fun as it continues, because you kind of have to. You really do have to start laughing it off, because you're like, Casey, 3 years ago, would you have known that? No. So. It's fine.
Until you experience
it.
Until you
experience it, you have no idea. But like, yeah, so I would say that's like really important to be aware of. And like, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and like, especially as we continue to expand out of like New England, like people don't know the product. They think it's the price point's too high, because they just don't get it. And like, you can't like lose faith, and like, you got to like have grit and like hustle, because I think a lot comes with like hustle. Like if you keep working hard, like you're going to have some like luck here and there. I feel like that's what I've noticed. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I think my advice to someone starting a business would be, I always say this, it's like, it's easy to see other larger businesses and all of the pretty shiny pieces of equipment and things and whatever that they have, and to think that you need to be there. But just grow I mean, obviously people have different resources. Some people have investors from the beginning and they have a lot of capital or whatever. So they, people can make the appropriate decision. But if you're just really bootstrapping something, grow methodically, like grow smart, don't test the concept. Don't go all in at the beginning, like just test the concept. And once you know it's valid, then invest in the next thing and then invest in the next thing and make small, like, when we first went to that farmer's market and sold out of like the 40 packages and then took another 30, we were like, okay, let's go to dough sheeter. So we bought the dough sheeter and we got it. We lucked out. They like Restaurant Depot had one that someone like never picked up, but it was on, discounted $800, which at that point was a lot of money. Right. So we bought the dough sheeter for $1,400 that like changed our life really. And it was like a little tabletop dough sheeter and saved the bruises on our palms. And like, we paid back that after like 2 farmers markets. And then we like bought, whatever, the next thing. And it was just very methodical. So I just think a lot of times I talk to people and they're like, okay, well, we're going to do like X, Y, and Z and all these things. Like, I'm like, well, did you like just test and make sure first and like be smart? And the other thing I would say is like kind of tying in what she said, you're going to make mistakes. Just try to make them not very expensive mistakes. I guess like there's going to be things,
we have like this cooker that's
continuous cooker
sitting in our kitchen, and it like
tunnel
$15,000 off an auction. I just look at it, I'm like, it's on other auctions down, no one wants it, and I'm like, well, I didn't know, like
it's $15,000, which is like relative is probably like not that expensive a mistake, or like we bought a piece of equipment that didn't really work and we sued the manufacturer. Okay, me being optimist thought that like the legal system worked, which it doesn't. And so like a larger company is just going to call your bluff and just make you spend money. So like, my advice, don't sue people unless you have a lot of money. And so we ended up like getting a refund. That was it. We didn't even spend. We spent like a couple $1,000s, like $2,000 or $3,000 on a lawyer. So it wasn't an expensive mistake.
Oh, that's good.
But it was a lesson learned.
Pick your battles.
Yeah. So pick your battles. So that was, I guess I think that would be, it's kind of like one and the same. I think looking back, my advice to myself too would just be, I think it's just like, trust the process, because you will feel in the moment like things are taking forever to happen. Like I remember when we redesigned our pouches, I was like, time has stopped. Like it was like this is taking so long to make these pouches and transition from the clamshells. And I was like, this is holding up our launch with Big Y, like blah, blah, blah. And it was just like the worst thing. And then looking back, I can't even remember. Like everything just feels like it has happened so quickly. So a lot of times you feel in this business or in any business that things need to be happening so quickly. But really like everything moves slowly.
Everything. Like a meeting next Friday. You're like, but why do I have to wait 7 days?
Or
like,
but even like a year that goes by, you're like, it's in the span of building a business, like we are moving quickly, just feels slow. So
before I want to ask you guys about the scholarship you have.
Oh yes. Yep.
Why this is important for you and why you doing it, and just if you can talk about the scholarship.
Yeah, so we partnered with the Polish Club of Boston and I'm always switch the letters, Polish American Heritage and Cultural Foundation. I always feel like, is it cultural and heritage or heritage and cultural? Anyway, they have a nonprofit. And so we partner with them to introduce a scholarship for Polish American women. And that's like, we don't really draw any specifics about like your percentage that you're Polish or anything like that. But so we introduced that this year because we wanted to do something with the Polish community and also like lift up women in kind of a concrete way. So if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it because woman owned, like we're just trying to create something or just show our support in any way we can, because I mean, I've met some badass women owning businesses, and I'm like, furthering your education to then become maybe one of those entrepreneurs is exciting. So
So
That's amazing.
you are women business owners.
Yeah.
What challenges comes with this? Did you face the challenges? Did you have any challenges? Because actually, we just did an interview with somebody else. Actually, did not have challenges. Like
it helps. Yeah, it helps you get in the door to a lot of places now, especially
you can
as
get certified. Yeah.
Yeah, when you get certified, women owned, on your packaging, and then you tell people like that gets you, waived fees and to with buyers who are like, oh, okay, you're woman owned, okay, because they need more diversity. So it has. I think it's helped me in my conversations with buyers and stuff like that.
And I think 90% of businesses, like especially the large ones, like the bigger chains, are working to increase the diversity on their shelves. So they want to fill those quotas, or they're motivated. So we're talking with Stop and Shop, like the woman-owned business definitely helps you with that, with them, with like slotting fees and things like that. And then I'm trying to think. Have you had any other concrete like?
Well, it's not. It's not necessarily like a yes or no. Like, oh, if you're not woman owned, like you're probably But it's like, oh, that's a nice added bonus. Like, add that in there because they need that diversification. So
I would say like there are rare occasions. I think the grocery industry in general is very male dominated. It's very old school. So a lot of the buyers, I always joke that I should like learn how to play golf because like a lot of the buyers are just like all the
charity golf.
Like not to be, it's like white guys playing golf together, right?
Yeah.
Like that's unfortunately probably a lot of corporate America still, and it is the grocery industry. We deal with a lot of like middle to older men in buying positions
who email hello Jaju when
hello
you say
Jaju.
your name.
Yeah.
Or like my name's Casey. I was gonna be Casey, boy or girl, but when I walk in place, they go, "Oh, you're a girl," and I'm like, because Casey goes either way, but they're like assuming that it's a guy. So we deal with a lot of men, which is fine, and I don't know that we've like, but I personally have had like, you have too, like we've had only a couple like negative experiences with certain like very boys clubby kind of organizations that'll be like, oh, you're a cute story or whatever, like, or go sample over there.
Like when we walk into some place and there's like all the big brands and then it's like us because we're the cute story or whatever. So there has been like only a few elements of that. But honestly, it's like, I don't really want to work with you if that's your attitude. So I think
but for the most part
it's been super positive
cheerleaders for sure.
Amazing.
That's
so
good.
actually I do have one more question.
Sure.
Guys, what do you do for fun? Because this is all stressful. So now how you relax, how you calm down, how you go from 100 to 0, how? I know it's a challenge because between me and we can't do it, but how you guys do it?
We typically take like a quarterly vacation, whatever that. And
nice.
I've noticed
vacations like could be like 4 days.
It's like it does happen quarterly, but it's really
vacation. I don't know what a vacation
I know.
is.
I'm like, but it's very important for like my mental. I need to get away. I need to be somewhere else. So I do that typically, or like go to Europe. Like at the end of the holiday season, which is like the busiest time, like between Christmas and New Year's, like peace. Like I'm gonna go somewhere cool. I also like exercise every single day for my mental health more than my physical. It's like if I'm not like endorphining up, like I'm not well. So I feel like that's super important for me. So I make time for that every day. But yeah, having a social, I mean, we were both single for quite some time, and I was just like, I started dating again, and I'm like, in like same, like we always talk about this. It's like they don't get it. Like, I mean, you guys have each other, right? So it's like you've been
you're in it together,
and you get it. But it's like so hard when you're out. You're like, I can make like May 18th work, and it's not because I don't like you. It's literally the next time I'm free. You know,
so it's that
because we do so many events.
So many events. Yeah. I'm like, do you want to join?
And we still do a lot of them because we travel so much with them. Like,
so that has been not easy, but also like I feel like I want to be an entrepreneur for life. So I'm like, I need to find someone that could appreciate
in a role that can either like complement that or has flexibility or whatever.
Absolutely.
I'm still trying to figure out who that ideal partner is because I like tried the super stable job like basically antithesis to what I'm doing. And like that, I don't know if that really works because they're like, why are you doing all these things? What? But anyway, I'm going to answer your question about fun and more like how to maintain. Like I'm on this big kick right now of like just being zen and the rest of my life with the business being so like hectic. And so like for me, that's sleeping well. So I put my sleep above like, so I will share these little tidbits with anybody. I think they're just like life changing. I keep my phone downstairs. So I go upstairs, I go to bed, and I fall asleep every night to the daily podcast from the New York Times to some soothing voice, like lulling me to sleep about some political events, some current events. I go like, okay, Alexa, play this. So I fall asleep and I don't have my phone. And so I don't wake up in the middle of the night and look at it. And I feel like that is like a terrible thing that so many people have. I mean, just having that glow. So I sleep. I try to create do things around my house to like keep my space, you know, kind of zen and positive. And I garden and like, I just try to do things that are not connected to technology. And I just ran the Boston Marathon. That was my 11th marathon. I'm in semi-retirement now. But yeah, I also travel a lot to, you know, we do our mini vacations and whatnot. That's big. But I really just think like I try to create a very zen mental space. And I think it takes a long time, especially in your 20s and moving into your 30s to like figure that out and like how to create that zen. So it's like surrounding yourself with the right people that are like your cheerleaders and and then just like creating a healthy space in your home and like getting the rest and getting it. I don't personally need to go like lift weights and run every day. I have a dog. If I go walk in the woods, if I'm just like not just staring at my phone, that's enough. But it's just like zen because the rest of your business is like unzen.
Chaos.
Yeah. It's funny. Like the last thing I'll say is like on that is like when it isn't like when there is a morning that is zen and you're like heading to the kitchen or you're like, what's wrong? Because like you can separate that in your personal, but like if it's like a work day, like I know at 9 a.m. like I'm gonna get a text that something's gonna start happening and so it's like it's just
my watch has been vibrating this entire time and I'm like, is the kitchen on fire?
So but I go like, okay, in 10 years, like if I'm not doing like a business like this, like am I gonna miss that chaos? Because sometimes you're like, it's
an addiction.
Right, it's an addiction because you're like, once you stop, you're like, okay, I should be doing.
What should I be doing now?
Yeah,
right. I have that guilt. Like,
right. Yeah.
Heaven
How
forbid,
do you guys vacation?
Heaven forbid, I walk in from the office at 9:30 at night and I sit down for like 10 minutes before I'm just like, I'm gonna go to bed early. I'm gonna relax. Nope. There's like a guilt level that you're sitting there thinking, oh my god, I should be checking email. I should answer that thing. I should do this. I should do that.
Yeah.
It's like chaos.
Right.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
But this is actually what I think what was entrepreneur mindset is not for everybody.
It's different.
I really think
it's not.
It's challenge even family because I know you talk about your family in the beginning because a lot of family no way don't do this, just make sure you work job safety it's not for everybody. So this way is a challenge where you find some people has the same mindset, has a challenge, and I'm sure guys you take a lot of chances. We love to take a chance.
We're risk takers.
We love this like
walking on the edge.
Just take risk and see what happens because make it happen. We live one life. So but this way it's very fun, guys. It's very fun. And also one thing actually I was gonna ask from you guys because I see now you deliver. If we can talk about delivery because I see people can pick up and deliver from you something like this.
Yeah. So
if you can talk about this very fast.
So we sell in 550 stores. So that's like our primary push. And so in the New England area, we're in about 350 plus specialty stores plus Roche Brothers was our first chain. So all the Roche Brothers and Brothers Marketplaces, Big Y, then a couple Hannafords in Massachusetts. Hopefully they're going to be putting us in more. Fingers crossed for that meeting. What am I missing?
And then,
Dave's
yeah,
Marketplace in Rhode Island.
We do the delivery companies, so like GoPuff in Boston area, Joker in Boston and New York.
Yeah.
And we also ship nationwide, so anyone that goes to our website can purchase.
Yeah, we ship nationwide.
Yeah,
And
it's
people
direct to
can, I mean,
consumer.
on a lesser scale, when we do like our events, people, if it's not like a Boston Calling Music Festival, but we do like our brewery pop-ups or farmers markets, people can like pre-order to pick up ahead of time, but that's like kind of small scale versus the other stuff. But yeah, we'll, on top of all the other stuff, we'll be doing things like we're doing, Attleboro and Portsmouth farmers markets, and then like every weekend. So we're doing, the big, like our big ones are, we're doing the Boston Polish Fest in May. Then we'll do Boston Calling. We have
Folk Festival in Newport, Rhode
Newport
Island,
Folk and
Festival,
Jazz Fest, and then
South Bay Bisco on Long Island,
Great South Bay in Long Island. And then going to Saratoga Springs for their brew fest. Like we're kind of doing all things like that. So when we
Still working 7 days a week.
Yeah, when she says like, she's like, yeah, you could, I'm free on like this day. It's really true. Like I sent my mom will often like watch my dog, and I sent her like all of my weekends. So I was basically like gone like all of June for sure, and then July, and so that's like August lets up a little bit, but yeah. So events, shipping direct to their home on our website. Home delivery services like GoPuff and Joker, and then we have all the smaller ones like Family Dinner, Crescent Ridge, things like that, and then the stores. We have a store mapper on our website, so just type in their zip code and find the closest store.
Can you say the website name?
JajuPierogi.com. So it's JAJU, and then pierogi like the food, so PIEROGI. If you just type that into Google or Pierogies Boston, we should show up.
And that's the Instagram handle too, Jaju.
Yeah, I also your Instagram. It's very fun actually. I looked at it. I saw you guys talking about. I think you're talking about Will Smith's slap.
Oh God!
Yeah, so I saw him saying how this connect, but it's very fun. But I say people should follow you on social media. Yeah. So what's the handle for Instagram?
Jaju Pierogi. Just straight Jaju Pierogi is on Instagram. I'm trying to be hip and do TikTok, but I need like some college intern to help me with that because it's not that easy. But yeah, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Jaju Pierogi.
Amazing.
Great. Well,
Thank
you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
This was fun.
This was fun. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Founder Thought. You can find more episodes wherever you listen to podcasts or on the web at founderthought.com. Founder Thought is a production of Pepper Gang.